How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to Clutch City Chronicles, and today we're going to be discussing the first two games of the season for the Houston Rockets. And now, of course, we're playing the Milwaukee Bucks tonight, and I'm going to let you guys know what my expectations are for that game based on what I've seen in these past two games so far. Obviously, opening night against the Atlanta Hawks was definitely a game filled with many highs and, of course, many lows. And really, we came out, running in that game and obviously gained a pretty nice lead to start out the game. And obviously, the Hawks came back and, we came back with our own punch. And then, of course, they also came back and they didn't look back as the Atlanta Hawks won that game. Despite the loss, I really was optimistic as there were several points in that game where the Rockets really looked like they could have had this game and could have won this game if it weren't for the many turnovers. And of course, Kevin Porter Jr. said it best. It was the jitters. It's a young squad. Obviously, they're going to get nervous on opening night against a really good team like the Atlanta Hawks. But despite that, there were some solid performances. Obviously, Şengün with 15 points and 9 rebounds off the bench. I think personally, despite the criticism, I think Şengün off the bench might actually be a smart idea, considering he really could have the upper hand against most bigs off the bench. And we're seeing that so far this season. And of course, Jalen Green, despite the inefficiency, had his own game. He started out really hot, but he cooled down over the game. And then Kevin Porter Jr., 21, 7, and 7, along with Jabari Smith Jr., who had a nice game of his own, but obviously wasn't the most efficient. And of course, Bruno Fernando, I think he had a nice debut at the starting center spot. He's basically a glue guy at the 5. He can play make, he can grab rebounds like it's nobody's business, but also he's really efficient around the cup, and you couldn't ask for more from your starting big, especially because you got Şengün coming off the bench, who most likely, despite coming off the bench, will most likely get more minutes than Bruno Fernando on a nightly basis. And of course, despite the loss, these performances, they were amazing. And, they kept me optimistic for the game against the Grizzlies, which was a really, really fun game to watch. Overall, despite the loss, there were several moments in this game, just like the Hawks game, the Rockets looked like they had the game in the bag. We were up by 12 at one point, but of course the Grizzlies came back. And even despite that, we came into the fourth quarter with a 5-point lead, blew that lead out of the water as we lost the quarter by 12 points and losing the game in total by 7. But despite everything like that, we had some real standout performances against the Grizzlies. Jalen Green, he had his comeback game with 33 points on really good efficiency. Şengün, yet again off the bench, making a 6th Man of the Year case as he had 23 points and 12 rebounds. Again, many people criticize Silas for bringing Şengün off the bench, but you never know, man. I think right now, thus far, he's performing really well off the bench against, bench bigs across the league. So really, I think this might be a smart idea down the line. Of course, with Şengün coming off the bench, that doesn't mean he's going to get 16 minutes a night. He's still going to get 25 minutes a night, but he's just not going to be starting the game, like we thought he would. But overall, Jalen Green, Şengün had standout performances. Jabari had an inefficient night of his own. Once his 3-ball starts flying and he becomes more consistent, he's going to be a real nice threat for us, moving forward. And obviously, Tari Eason, despite minimal minutes, had a nice game of his own. And of course, Eric Gordon, being a vet, had a solid game. And there were really some times where he bailed us out with his 3-ball. But a lot of people in the chat were saying that they're not impressed with Eric Gordon and his play style within the team, and I could really agree with that. Despite having 14 points in last night's game, I really felt like Eric Gordon had a lot of times where he turned the ball over carelessly, and being a veteran, you cannot be doing that, especially because you're surrounded by a bunch of guys that are 21 or younger. So that needs to be an improvement for Eric Gordon. He needs to handle the rock more assertively moving forward. But just in general, over these last two games, my final verdict is we are a talented team. We are a lot better than we were in the previous 2 years. And really, the only problem we had in both of these games is closing the game out. And that's something we're going to learn over this season. There's going to be a lot of highs and a lot of lows. And really, it's going to be learning curves that we're just going to have to recover from and, learn from, of course. And hopefully down the line, mid-season we finally start clicking and become a pretty solid team. But just in general, for tonight's game against the Milwaukee Bucks, I expect nothing less. I expect a competitive game because the Rockets, they're young, they're hungry. They just had back-to-back losses, and I guarantee you they don't want to make it 3 losses in a row. So this is going to be a competitive game on the Rockets end. Obviously, I don't think it might be enough to beat the Bucks, but we might indeed pull off the upside, especially if Jabari Smith Jr. could find his shot, have a more consistent and efficient night, in tonight's game. But just in general, I want to hear your guys' thoughts on the Houston Rockets thus far. Like if you enjoyed the video, and of course, make sure to subscribe for more, and I'll see you guys in the next one.